Planetiles is an engrossing and fascinating single-player, tile-based strategic board game for single player, although there are online leaderboards if you're very competitive for each level, that sees you needing to terraform a planet to 100% completion so that it's lush, green and vibrant and full of different biodiversity for you to enjoy. Taking cues from games like Dorfromantik, for example, or Terra, but this is like board game Tetris version of that, with lots of randomised natural disaster elements thrown into the mix. I do think this game commits a slight cardinal sin when it comes to marketing though, because it's marketing itself as a relaxing and cosy game, but I disagree and say that it's deeply strategic and it makes you really think about each and every move, because you're having to react to some randomisation that happens here, not just with the tiles and the moves that you have to deal with, but also natural disasters that will pop out as you start to progress further in the game, and I'll explain that all in a minute. Planetiles starts off with you having a small, medium or large planet and then a different perimeter fence that you'll need to fill in to, as best as your ability, but hopefully 100% capacity, of biodiversity tiles. There's sand, there's mountains, there's forest, there's crops. They're kind of your basic starter tiles, and what you're looking to do once you've stuck in your first Oasis tile to kick the game off is that you'll have tiles generating in the bottom right hand side of the screen like tetronomos, so L shapes, squares of 2x2, like two just side by side, or little L's, whatever it is. You're trying to slot them in so that you can then create biomes of 3x3 usually of the same type of thing. So if you can get 3x3 trees together, that will create a forest structure. Same for sand, creates a sand structure, mountain for mountain, crop for crop. And what these do is they start to unlock power-ups that are on the left-hand side of your screen. Because your end goal here is to try and terraform 100% of the world around you, but it's incredibly difficult to do that just by placing down some tiles wiggledy-piggledy with the different shapes and sizes of tiles that you've got. Gaps will be left, you'll be running out of tiles because tiles are generated every time you reach certain scored thresholds, and these power-ups help you generate more score to generate more tiles to keep you going. What this means is that each time you then unlock a structure, you unlock the power-up related to it. So for instance, the forest and the mountain biomes unlock a singular tile for mountains and trees that you can then place anywhere on the map so long as it's still co-joined to something you've already placed, and that's the same for all tiles that you've got. But that's really handy for filling in gaps where there's just like a single tile slap bang in the middle or in a corner somewhere really awkwardly, and you're thinking, because single tiles don't generate randomly, you have to kind of fill them in, and this is how you do it. You can also have a certain tile that will completely change out all of the different randomized tiles that you get, and that can be very handy when you get towards the end of a round and you've got like a long line of 4 squares, but actually you don't have that and the ability to fit it in, so you can try and like throw them back in and regenerate new shapes. You can also have new Oasis tiles, and this is particularly handy in later levels where you've got lots of disparate islands that you're filling in together and you need to work out how you can leap from one island to the next. But there's also missions, and missions are another way for you to generate points, and these will be things like link together 20 forest tiles, or place a crop tile surrounded by desert, and that will generate say 100 points per mission that you complete, and that's really handy because it boosts up your score, and whenever you clear certain score thresholds, and you'll be able to see that by the little yellow bar that's going across from left to right underneath your score, that then generates nice new tiles to keep you in the game, because it's game over as soon as you run out of tiles and you've got no power-ups that you can kind of generate new things from, but you can also run out of places to stick tiles before you run out of them, and that also equates to a game over too. You only pass the level when you've completed a level and there's a certain amount of spaces left. Early on it's 10, then it goes down to 5, and then it's looking for like pure completionists. And that's where the real hardness of Planetiles comes into play, because it's very difficult to get perfect scores in this game. And the reason for that is some of the randomized natural disasters that occur as you progress through the game. As you're clearing all of these missions, finding all of these different biomes and upgrading your score, you'll reach certain score thresholds that unlock upgrades to the structures that you've built or can build. You get to pick from an either this or that, so it could be upgrading your forest and mountain biomes, so that instead of it generating just one single square, it can generate 2 single squares, which is very handy again for competing in all of the gaps. It could be that it swaps out not just 2 missions on your panel, it could swap out up to 4, for example. It's all different things of your power. All of your power-ups basically can be upgraded, but they come at a cost of a natural disaster, and sometimes you need to pick what's the least evil natural disaster for where you are at that time, rather than focusing on the upgrade, because it could be things like triggering an earthquake, which sends a zigzag line of randomized mountain tiles going across what you've built or anywhere in the planet. It could totally miss you if it's early on, but it could go right the way through things that you were just a couple of moves away from completing massive, beautiful biome structures of loads of 3x3 tiles, and now you're buggered. Another one could be a volcano that randomly surfaces a 3x3 square volcano that then shoots out lava bombs and sinks random tiles around it. There's another one where it's like a solar electrical storm that then locks out any of your power-ups for the next 7 turns. There's a climate emergency where lots of sand tiles start to appear out. There's ones where you can turn, because there's a flood, it turns tiles that are next to desert tiles into swamps, for example, because they're considered beach tiles. It really is well themed, but it's totally random where that happens, and it's also a detrimental effect. And circling back to that whole, but just because it's a nature game, it doesn't make it cozy and relaxing thought that I had about this game, and just games that are nature themed in general. This is where the game is deeply strategic, because you can have a plan, but you need to constantly adjust that plan depending on what's just happened with your environment. Sometimes it feels unfair because it's randomised. That doesn't lend itself well to a relaxing and cosy game. But it does make you think and plan ahead, and you think, I could really do with that particular structure being upgraded, but I can't afford to just have a random line of mountains fly through, or a meteor storm that's just going to punch random holes in things that I've nearly got built, because I don't have all of those singular blocks to kind of patchwork it back up again. So it's really up to you what's the worst evil that you choose from. And that's part of the strategy, and it's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this game, and it took me a while to wrestle with Planetiles to really understand all of its mechanics and how they pull together so nicely. There's also an overarching upgrade system for this game. So the more you play, the more XP you get, and then you start to level up, and this unlocks additional boosters to your score or modifiers. So it could be that you increase the amount of points that you clear per mission, but then you don't get as many points for when you line up tiles adjacent to each other of the same ilk. So if you place, say, 2 tree tiles next to each other, the tree tiles earn 10 points when they're adjacent, but any of the other facing things, if it's not a tree next to it, only earn 2. So it's a good subtle way to keep a nice little chain of blocks of the same type of tile together. It's a good way to boost your score. But that might not necessarily be clearing the missions that you're being asked to do, so you're kind of balancing the act there. You could also have things like boosting what amount of score or the type of upgrade that a certain structure has. And the more that you play through the game, the more XP you earn, the more of these slots you unlock, so that you can build out your play style to really lean into certain types of structures or play tactics. But you have to play a few hours to unlock all of those to get there and do well, because otherwise you'll be on a bit of a slow grind, maybe struggling a little bit early on in this game before you can be like, now I'm off and away. But once I'd unlocked a couple of those overarching boosters, I found my playstyle and I was romping through this game, having great fun, getting as close to the end as possible, still having some dud runs here and there where either the tiles or the natural disasters or just my own lack of strategic forethought got the better of me. But it always had that one more go feel. And that's really how I judge these types of strategic games that are all about you against the game. And I found this engrossing, really fun to play, excellently themed. It's not relaxing or cute for me. This is a deep thinking strategic game that I would recommend to fans of probably more Terra nil than a Dofromantic style game, but probably also fans of like Chime, the musical puzzle game where you had to kind of fit blocks into various weird shapes to the beat, and also probably fans of Tetris because it's going back to Tromino blocks, but just with a naturistic theme. This will be a little hidden gem, really enjoyed it, and big thumbs up from me. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.